Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please enter into the chat box or anything if you cannot hear me at all. Yeah, so first of all, I just want to start by saying hello and thank you to Lisa. She has been really wonderful. We connected a little while back, probably a couple of months ago on this whole venture of us doing a webinar. And so I just want to say thank you. She's been having a little bit of some connectivity issues because there was a little bit of an issue in the Brainy VA headquarters. And so there's been a little bit of a disconnect as being able to share the screen today, but we kind of talked it through yesterday. And so I just kind of want to do a little brief overview about Lisa. I'm sure you all know her pretty well from her group, but Lisa has been running a successful virtual assistant and VA business coaching practice since 2011, sharing her wise and witty advice. And I can attest that she's very witty and wonderful. We've had a lot of great chats over the past few weeks, just kind of catching up about things as we ramped up to the webinar here. And so she helps other women launch and grow their own successful virtual assistant businesses, giving them more freedom and a great income and fulfilling the virtual assistant lifestyle. You can find Lisa hanging out on her website at thebrainygal.com. So yeah, so thanks so much again for joining us today. I am the community manager for TRAVO. I've been with the company a little over a year and a half now. And so it's really a big part of my career to just do the reach out for TRAVO and the community. And so we've been really reaching out to virtual assistants like yourselves because we've had a few sign up and they've begun to add it into their business, being able to add that in as a new thing for their clients, just because we're kind of a new tool that's been around about 2 years now. Officially, this version has been a little over half a year with great success. I'm actually going to take my glasses off because there's a lot of reflection going on there and it's a little distracting. And so, yeah, I'll just tell you a little bit of history about TRAVO. TRAVO was kind of a twinkle in Taylor's eye a little over 2 years ago. He was working at another company and kind of raising that startup into what it is now. But where the story of TRAVO really comes from is when he was sitting down with his assistant and seeing how complicated travel planning was. And that's where TRAVO came into play, being able to create this tool for assistants and others to be able to just plan travel easier, make it easier, especially for small businesses, whether that be virtual assistant small businesses or just small businesses, small sales teams, things such as that. And so that's really where TRAVO came out of, was the difficulty of planning travel for others. So we really just kind of simplified everything down, made it easier. We're able to give special rates to the people who use our tool. And yeah, we're really excited about that. So I guess let's get into it. I'm just going to kind of precursor this with, it's going to be like a little demo of TRAVO. I'm going to be integrating in kind of some tips and tricks about travel planning, especially if you haven't travel planned for somebody before. There's just going to be some little nuggets of wisdom in there as I can kind of put them in there from the past year and a half. I've talked to admins, virtual assistants from all around the world, getting advice from them, and that's really where this tool came out of, was their advice. So it's a really great thing that just kind of harnesses everything together. And I know it was mentioned in all of the lettering and everything for this webinar, but it is a free tool. I think that's important to let people know, so there's not going to be any hidden fees or anything. It is completely free to use to create your profile. And yeah, so let's get started. I'm just going to share my screen here. All right. Share. Make that full screen. Sorry, I know it's getting a little bit infinite screens there. But all right, so let's begin. This is TRAVO. Okay, so this is kind of the planning page. When you yourself sign up, it's going to be a little bit different because it's going to have you create a profile first to let you be able to kind of create something so you can demo it out, try it out yourselves, because that's how I feel we all like to view new technology, is to kind of try it out ourselves, do something a little different, just see how it's going to work for us, how it's going to work for your business. So up here in the top left corner, we have Plan a Trip, Profiles, and Trip Manager. These are the three main aspects of travel planning. So all assistants that we spoke with, they all said that the hardest part about travel planning was just keeping everything in one place and making sure they were able to really just put themselves in their traveler's shoes. So that's what this solves here. We're keeping it all in one place. So I'm going to start with profiles. And this is for a number of reasons. Profiles is really the heart of TRAVO. This is kind of where all the search, everything kind of comes from for TRAVO. But I think it's really important specifically to our virtual assistant users who use TRAVO, because what this does is it gives you the power to be the travel agent, the travel planner for your client, to be able to kind of add that next level of service to them, because you're able to keep all of your travelers in one place, but they are only going to see their own profiles here. So it's a really wonderful way to communicate travel and to also be able to just kind of have everything secure, so you're not having to worry about credit card numbers and loyalty numbers and all of that on your personal work computer. And so let me begin here. About the top left corner, we have profiles. So we have concierge, so that's kind of our little play on concierge. And then I have myself as an admin on this profile. And so you would be one of these gold shielded admins here for the profiles. And then to the left here, we have our travelers. So these are all the travelers that I have listed in my team here. This is more of just a sample group that I've created to be able to run trips on. So you'll see some names in there from different celebrities and people from TV shows in there. So in here, you'll notice that I have a little star next to Timothy Pinky. This is because he is my main traveler that I do travel planning for. So what's here to know is you probably have multiple different clients, and those clients are not all at the same businesses, or they may be just a solo independent business person that you are helping out with your business. So what's wonderful is George Tucker is never going to see John Habobson's flights, never going to see his information. George Tucker is only going to see George Tucker's profile. And that's the way it works all the way through. The only reason you're seeing all of them is because you are the admin. So you control the entire group here. So to continue here on the left-hand side, it's really easy to add a new traveler. I'm just going to click Add New Traveler to show you what that looks like. So when you add the traveler, what really defines their user is actually their email. So the email that you add in for them, that is actually going to be the email that really controls their profile. That's kind of like their username. And if you need to add another admin to the group for any reason, you can do this, but do this carefully, because this needs to be somebody else that can see all of the travelers, all their personal information as well. So name, this is important that it has to be a government issued ID name, because anyone who's traveling, when you're creating tickets or doing anything for them, it's really important that they that everything is exact to their government issue ID. So if you're new to travel planning, always make sure to double check with your client that this is the name that appears on their government issued ID, on their passport, all of that, just because it's so important for them getting through the gate, getting through pre-check, all of those different things. So here, when you're inviting your traveler, you can do a little message saying, I would like you to fill out your profile, please put in your preferences, but this is also not necessary. Depends on the level of relationship you have with your traveler. So you are able to put in here a message inviting them to fill out their profile, but you can also just not send an invite, and you can add that traveler in. And when you add them in, that's actually going to not alert them or anything like that. It'll give you the time to fill out their profile. So I'm just going to exit out of here. And then right down here. So this is the trip request form. So this form is a really great little feature that we recently have added into TRAVO. This is going to help a lot with when you're doing travel planning for others, because something that I think a lot of people have shied away from when it comes to doing travel planning for others is actually having to go through the entire process of asking them the questions, having to know what right questions to ask for their trip. Well, I just clicked here. This is what the travel request form looks like. So you yourself for your business are going to have your own travel request form. Since I work at TRAVO, mine is called TRAVO Travel Request Form. It's going to fill in whatever your business name is that you put in when you sign up. It's going to fill that in there for you to be able to request travel from them. So this is where you can send the form over. They'll be able to fill out with their name and email, the trip name, event information, all of this, preferred hotels, preferred airline, just being able to kind of start that process with them, begin the process of travel planning. All right, so I'm just going to click back here to go back into my profiles. All right. All right, awesome. So we have trip request form. I'm just going to scroll back up here. And I just want to let you know, I'm spending a lot of time on profiles, specifically for you all today, just because I think that is where it's going to draw a lot of its value for you as a virtual assistant. Because this is where you can really keep it all organized, because as anyone knows, if they've ever tried travel planning before for somebody, it's really hard remotely. There's a lot of security issues you have to worry about. So I'm going to get into the profile now, and we're actually going to look at Timothy's because he is my main traveler here that I have. So this is where you'll notice it's grayed out where the email is. So you can't edit emails for people after you've put them in, just because that really is their username for their account. So here I have all of Timothy's information, how it's going to appear, how I want it for tickets, birthday, phone. These are all the important items to be able to get from people to be able to purchase tickets and do travel planning for them. Additional preferences. This is really great for new travelers to be able to kind of a key tip for when you're travel planning for somebody is really kind of diving in deep as to who they are, because travel planning is really personal. So if it's a client you know really well, you're probably going to know a lot of these things, but if they're new, it's a great time to get to know them and to be able to learn a little bit more about them. Just kind of asking a few of the basic questions would be, you know, do you have any preferences as far as high or low floors? Do you have any allergies I need to be aware of when you're travel planning? For example, I've helped many people travel plan in the past, planning their travel, and what I have found is there's actually a lot of people that are allergic to feather pillows. So just kind of understanding a little bit about that. Are you somebody who wants to have a Starbucks within the hotel? And it's just kind of great too, because it gives you a great reason to just kind of get to know your client a little bit more and have that rapport with them. So then here we have departure address. So this is something you'll see when I do a quick trip here on TRAVO, and this is where you're going to be able to put in their work and home address, or they can fill all of this out as well. And so for work and home address, this is because it's actually going to create an itinerary for you while you're doing the travel planning. And the reason that's really cool is it does so much of the extra work for you, so that then you're able to really go above and beyond without having to spend an extra hour pasting an itinerary together for them. And then we integrate with Google Calendars. I'll talk a little later about how you are able to send an ICS file to them so they can drop it into their calendar if you maybe don't have access to their calendar currently. So it doesn't have to be a Google Calendar. It can be any type of calendar for them to just kind of open it in their email and drop it in. Expensify for small businesses that have Expensify, it can send receipts over to their account if they so choose. And then passports. So passports are obviously an important thing for when someone's travel planning. If they're going internationally, I think this is really great because if you've never done international travel planning before, you're going to notice here how you have to have the issue and expiration date. That's something I didn't know before I started doing international travel planning, that it's important to have both of those dates when you're doing the planning. Also, when you do searches on TRAVO, there's going to be a little shield that's going to show up when you do international travel that links you to a website that you can get information as far as if there's any travel bans on certain items. I know for a while there were a few countries you were not allowed to bring laptops with you between 2 different countries. So it'll link through there for you. So you can kind of be up to date, have that knowledge for them. And so that's the whole kind of point of TRAVO, is being able to help you travel plan when you're kind of new to it without feeling that worry that you're going to, miss things. All right, so we're going to head into preferences now. This is really where people love the profiles. So especially if you're doing travel planning for one of those road warriors where they have a lot of loyalty numbers, they have points, they are steady and true to whatever airline they like to fly, they have points that they want to use, things like that. So the thing is with TRAVO, you're able to make sure that you can get them their points for their travel planning. And I'll talk a little bit later about what it looks like if they have points and you're booking elsewhere, how you can really integrate that in still with travel planning. So here we have the loyalty programs. So this is Timothy American Airlines, this is his favorite airline. You can add in multiples, you just search them right in here, but I'm just putting American because that's the #1. And so I only want it to really kind of harness in on that. But he also has JetBlue loyalty points, and they're both in here. And as I'll show you later in checkout, it does autofill that information. And then kind of diving deeper in their preferences, we have seat preferences, class of service. Sometimes you're planning for people and they will only fly first class. That is, the only way they will travel. So there's that. Comfort, nonstop. Also TSA pre-check numbers, no traveler numbers, redress numbers. This is just kind of, once again, it's a great thing to kind of put that reminder in of, I need to ask the traveler for this information because it's going to go through on their ticket when you book with TRAVO. And it's just kind of one of those reminders of, am I getting all the information I need for their trip? So same, lodging and ground are very similar to flight, where it's got your preferred chain you can choose, add in your loyalty programs. The difference is with hotels, you might have somebody that you're planning for and they have very specific hotels they like to stay in for certain trips. And so kind of just deleted one out of there because Swiss Hotel is something that I added in for Chicago for Timothy because that's one of his favorite hotels when he's going there. And so it'll kind of try to pick that favorite hotel when they're going there, so you don't always have to think of that. It doesn't always have to be top of mind. Room preferences, king, queen, double. Because you'd be surprised, some people, if they stay for a long time, they actually like to have 2 beds because for some reason they might sleep in one and then sleep in the other one the next night. I've heard it all when it comes to travel planning, and you'll kind of learn that as you plan for people. And then star ratings, because there are going to be the people that will not stay below a 5-star. All right, so ground transportation. This is where you're able to add in any different programs that they like, such as National, any other loyalty programs. Car preferences, we also are integrated with Uber, so it will choose Uber option if that is the cheapest as well. And so Uber, the great thing about this is then you're going to be able to kind of do that cost comparison for your traveler, where you can say, this is how much it's estimated to cost for all of your trips, you know, from the airport to the hotel to your different meetings, and say, you know, this may be more cost efficient than this is how much a car rental is, but you also kind of have to think about parking prices and stuff like that for car rentals. All right, and then timing. So this is a really cool part of TRAVO where it's just going to build in that timing for you. Your traveler can choose their preferences, and it's going to build it into the itinerary for them. So being able to show that they like to have 60 minutes. They like to arrive to the airport an hour before their flight so they have that time to get through security. This is a great time for you to get to know your client as well, kind of knowing, are they the type of person who likes to have a lot of time to be prepared, or are they that last minute kind of person that just wants to, you know, get in, they are willing to take the risk and get through security and things like that. All right. So then we have payment. So this is another really important piece for you all as virtual assistants of having that security within TRAVO. So here we have, you can kind of name the card, enter in all the card information. Right here, you can see that all the credit card information is encrypted via our secure payment system. So it's PCI DSS certified. And so, you know, we have high security, making sure that this information doesn't get out. And so we'll notice here, right here, this little checkbox, this actually allows it. So if your traveler, maybe they're a new client and they're not, you know, giving their all their credit card information yet, what they can do is they can enter in their own credit card information for you. Then what it does is they can click admin accessible. And so then you will have access to it to book their travel for them, but without them actually having to do any exchange of credit card numbers or anything like that. But then you'll still be able to have access to that to do the booking of their travel for them. All right, and then notifications. This is where you get to choose kind of what emails your traveler is getting. I'll show a little bit about this later when I do the booking process, how it looks in that checkout area, because actually when you book with TRAVO, since you're kind of the person who's really guiding them through this trip, you actually are going to receive the check-in numbers as well. You're going to receive those confirmation numbers so that you can check them in early. And so you have it prepared, because more often than not, as people who are, you know, assisting others, often people lose things and then they call you in a hurry and they're like, I don't know where it is, I can't find it in my email. And then you're going to have it ready for them. And the great thing is it's going to be ready for them on their profile on here too, but you're always going to have a copy as well, so that you know what's going on just as much as they do. And then manage travelers. This is important to you because this is where you can see when your travelers have registered, if you need to send an invite still, if you're just kind of waiting for them. This is really important since this is your team. These are the people that you are planning for. This is where you can see who's registered, when they were registered. Also being able to send out something new to them. All right. So now that I've gone through profiles very in depth, I think the next logical step is let's plan a trip. Okay, so we're going to go to the plan the trip page. So a little bit about this page. So TRAVO has created 4 different tabs here. So full itineraries, where TRAVO started from. This is where it's a really fun tool if you're doing last minute trips, where you're able to put in the events and then the dates of those events, and it's actually going to plan the trip for you, finding the flight, the hotel, and the car rental. But I'm actually going to do piece by piece, because that's really how the travel planning process works for most assistants. That's how it really works when you're kind of trying to be that travel agent from afar for somebody, because flights are always the first thing they want to know about. And then once those are pegged down, that's when you really want to kind of move forward with the trip, and you can find the hotel and car rental, but flights are always the biggest pain point because the prices change so quickly. There's only so many seats, and depending on where your traveler's coming from, there might not be a lot of flights to where they're going to. With that in mind, I'm just going to do a pretty simple trip here. You can do round trip, one way, or multi-city. I'm going to do round trip just because I'm going to do kind of a simple run through here. But these options are really great for anyone who hasn't ever done travel planning before. These are really awesome because if you're doing travel planning for somebody that travels a lot, this is something worth talking to them about, asking them, are they a round trip flight type of person, or do they want to one ways because it makes it easier for canceling and rebooking. Usually the prices are incredibly similar, if not sometimes they can be cheaper, sometimes they can maybe be a couple bucks more, but it can really just make it easier. Same goes for multi-city. This is a really hard thing to do if you haven't travel planned a ton. But multi-city is, I'll just click it here. Multi-city is always the biggest headache because it's really just, to simplify it, it's just a lot of one ways going to multiple cities. So if you're planning for somebody who is, you know, a salesperson and they're like, hey, I'm from the West Coast, but I'm going to visit all my East Coast clients, then it is very likely that they are going to want you to do a multi-city trip for them, where they're going to be hopping from Chicago to New York to South Carolina, then maybe down to Miami, and then over to Texas, and then back to the West Coast. And so this makes it really easy to go through. All right. And we just had a question come through, and I thought I should just address this real quick. So to let everyone know, TRAVO is an international tool. You can use it internationally with multiple different countries. The only thing right now is that TRAVO only charges in USD. We are working on getting other currencies. We're hoping to get that in the next couple months to be able to. It's just a matter of getting those rates and things provided from people. And so, so right now it is only USD, but it just depends on who your traveler is. If they're in the US, it is going to charge it in USD, and credit cards do convert USD to whatever currency, but I know that can be a bit of a pain point for some people. So I did just want to let people know that up front, but it can be used completely internationally. All right, and so multi-city, this is just to show you what this looks like. You can choose where you're departing from and arriving to, and as you add that in, I'll just do LAX to ORD. I'm not going to run a multi-city search, but I just want to show you what this looks like. And so this is a one-way, and I'm like, okay, now I know they're going from Chicago to New York, and they have that meeting. I want them to fly in on the 13th. And you can kind of see the process it would do here. And then when you run the search, it's going to find multiple one-ways, so it makes it easier. You can search through it all on one trip that you're planning instead of having to do a one-way search, and then another one-way search, and then another one. So just to give a heads up, that's how multi-city works. We also have hotel and car rental tabs. This makes it really easy to be able to, you can start the trip on hotels. This is incredibly uncommon unless your traveler for some reason is very picky about a hotel and they want you to book it 3 months in advance. But car rental, hotel, this is, they're mostly used, I would say, if you're travel planning for somebody, they might already have their flights and they just say, hey, I need a hotel. So what you can do is you can find a hotel and search it based off of the address of where their events are. So this is where it kind of gives you a leg up in the travel planning process as being their VA, where you're going to be able to find that hotel based off of where their events are. So you're already starting 3 steps ahead instead of having to search through, okay, these are all the Marriotts in Chicago. Now I need to find the Marriotts that are down on Wacker Drive near the lake. And so that kind of can be a long process. So this is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of hassle. I can promise you that. And then creating a blank itinerary. This is something that we added in. Say you have a traveler who they just ask you and they say, hey, I've already booked things, but I really would love for you as my assistant to be able to help me create an itinerary for this because I like to have a hard copy. I like to have it in my I like to have it in my agenda. And so this is where you can do create a blank itinerary, and where you're able to just add in everything that they may have booked someplace else. All right, but what we're going to do now is get into a little trip planning. So I'm going to do a round trip. It's going to be from LAX to Chicago. So we have these little drop downs here on these little check marks where you can put search nearby airports. This is really cool too if you maybe aren't as familiar with the area and they don't have a specific airport they like. You're able to kind of see the different prices. There may be a little airport that's pretty close by, but it's actually you know, just a better flight, cheaper flight. And even though it's not the main airport, sometimes the little airports are even easier to fly into. So I am just gonna go, I have my traveler has a trip. We're gonna do a travel planning for Timothy. It's just gonna be a simple trip. He's going to Chicago from August 10th to August 13th. It's just him, but we also make it easy for multiple travelers here. So this drop down lets you choose what flight class and how many travelers you'd like to plan for. I'm just going to do the one traveler today, and it already chose Timothy for me because I have him as my preferred traveler, the one that I plan for the most. But here you can see we have the entire list of travelers. So when you plan for these people, what it is you can do Timothy here, you do the trip, and so what happens is you run the search, and it's actually going to do the search based around what his preferences are. So the fact that he likes American Airlines, it's going to try to find American Airlines for him. It's right here. Sorry, I'm just going to answer a question real quick. Okay, yeah, so we had somebody ask a little bit about hotel rates and discounts. I'll get into that when we begin our search. Okay, and also we do have, I know I mentioned Ashley in the beginning, she is here, she's manning the chat, and so she's going to really try to help with answering any questions for you. Also too, she's just going to let me know of any questions that you have. So if I don't answer them right away, I promise I will get to them at the end of the webinar, and we can just kind of go through them all together. This process is going to be pretty quick as far as we're just going to go through kind of what travel planning looks like. And then I'll love to open up the floor for some more questions. So what it's doing right now is it's actually running the search. It's trying to find all the flights that are going from LAX to ORD and surrounding airports on August 10th to August 13th. So this is what the trip is going to look like here. So we start out with trying to find a flight, since that's kind of, you know, the hardest part. So we ran that flight search, and this is now, we are on a flight results page. So what we have here are all the flights. You can see there's 551 flights available. And then to the left, we have all of our different options here to be able to sort everything out. So I know that Timothy will only fly a nonstop, so I can just unclick one stop and two stop, even though, and the prices, what's funny is the prices are actually more for those, at least at the minimum. And now we have 177 flights to sort through. You will notice that it has chosen an American Airlines flight for me. This is because he has it in there that it is his preferred airline. So that makes it really easy to just be able to kind of sort through everything, so you're not having to think through everything so much, especially if you're travel planning for a lot of different people. If that becomes something that you're really good at it and you like to do that for all of your clients, it's something that I know a lot of people, it takes up so much of their time and they have a hard time with it. So they love being able to hand it to somebody else that knows them well enough that they can search based on their preferences, but that they're able to do the digging through all the times. So he has a pretty simple schedule, so I don't have to look very hard for what I want. In fact, I really like what it chose for me here. Specifically, I like this 7:22 a.m. flight out of Chicago because he really likes to get out early. So I'm going to select this return flight. And then what it does is it actually narrows the list down for me and shows me 9 different options where the other American flights that pair up with it. I know he wants to get in pretty early, and since there's that time difference, I'm going to choose to have him leave LA really early to get over to Chicago, just so he has time to get into his hotel and kind of rest up. So this is another thing that can be hard with travel planning if you don't do it that often, is looking into time zones. And so here it makes it really easy. It shows you the time they leave and the time they're arriving. And this is the time in LA, and then this is what time it's going to be when they get there in into Chicago. So I'm just going to select that flight here. So now it's selected it for me. You'll see on the right we have the map here because we are integrated with Google Maps. That's going to play a little bit more as we look at the itinerary. But I also wanted to click one last thing and show you. So I'm going to click Show Seats here. This is something that our users really asked a lot for. This is good to know when you're doing travel planning. It's really important. Seats are more important, I would say, than almost anything else for most business travelers, especially real road warriors. They are very specific about their seats. They want that aisle seat. They want that window seat. Whatever their preference is, they really want it. So if you can get them on a flight with that seat, more power to you. Especially the farther up the plane is usually preferred because it can get them on and off quickly onto the plane. Also, a little bit of a pro tip when you are planning for somebody. So say that you're getting to know your traveler. A great question is, are they left-handed or right-handed? And you kind of think, what does this have to do with seating? Well, actually, if your traveler really likes aisle seats and they are left-handed, you're going to want to try to seat them in this seat over here so that their left hand has more mobility because it's out in the aisle. Same if they're right-handed. You're going to try to put them over here so their right hand has more mobility because it's out in the aisle. All right, and so let's say that you have a traveler that's really picky. Maybe you're new and you're kind of trying to figure out what they like. This is where you can do Add to Suggested. So Add to Suggested is going to be included in this list. Up here in the middle, you'll see Suggested, and it's really easy. You can just click Add to Suggested, put little notes, because when you begin travel planning for people, you're going to see there's a lot out there as far as flights and hotels to choose from. And as you're working it through to kind of figure out what they like and how travel planning is going to look for the both of you, it's going to involve a lot of putting the options out there and figuring out what they usually choose to be able to kind of know just where you're going to be intuitive about it and know they want the cheapest when they're in Chicago. They don't care, or if they don't care what the price is and they just want the closest Marriott. So then you can just click easiest, or you can add your own label with a title in there. And then when you go to suggested, it's going to have this list for them to be able to choose from right within the trip. All right, so I'm going to click on the itinerary here to kind of give you a show of what it's doing right now. So on the right, it's just showing the flight because all we have in here is the flight. But you can see in the middle, it's building this itinerary for you, and it's just kind of making it easy for you to be able to kind of see how things are looking. Also, you'll notice we have time zones up here, but I'll get into that after. We're going to just quick add some more to the trip. I'm going to do leave from. So I have work address for Timothy as 604 Arizona. I'm going to click done here. And so it's going to start to load. So what this is doing is, oh, and it's already loaded. So what this is doing is it's adding in the 27-minute drive to the airport. I'm just going to click it. You can even see it, and it actually shows how long it's going to be. There's no expected traffic because it's at 5 a.m., which is really crazy because it's LA. But 5 a.m. is usually a pretty good time to not have to worry about traffic when you're over in this area. But from there, I'm just going to add in, we're going to kind of pick out hotels. So I'm going to say I already have a hotel reservation. just to kind of show you what this looks like. If you're planning for somebody who's going to a conference, you're going to be able to add in everything here for that hotel so that it'll have the address and all of that. So it's going to do the planning for you in the itinerary. But I do not have a hotel, so I'm going to quick find one here for Timothy. So 500 East Wacker Drive in Chicago, Illinois. I know that's where his main meeting is with his client. So I have him check in the 10th and checking out the 13th, and we'll just do one search real quick here. So it's just finding all of the hotels that are really close by this specific location, because usually you're going to have the main spot that they're traveling to, where you're going to actually want to find all of the hotels near that. You notice here the little search icon actually shows up. So I can zoom in here and see where all of the hotels are. And it actually eliminates all hotels that are not within this view on my left-hand side. You'll notice it shows the Swiss Hotel because that's the hotel I favorited in his profile. And that's because it's really close to the headquarters where he's always having meetings when he is in Chicago. So I'll just show you kind of what it looks like to go through the options here. It has, you're able to view what to expect from the hotel in photos, and it just kind of does a full summary here. Even with the phone number, if you have that traveler that has allergies, being able to call ahead of time to the hotel. Just really putting all that information out there for you as you're learning about each hotel in the areas that they travel to. And also including the cancellation policy, which is very important to know for your traveler, especially because things are going to change a lot. They're going to cancel. They're going to want to rebook things. So being able to know, you can just select this room and there you go. It's added right into the trip. And so then we're going to add in ground transit just to kind of finalize the itinerary so I can show you what that looks like before we start doing some questions. Going to do add rental to the itinerary. It's showing where it's picking and dropping off. You can actually edit all of this as you would like to. So as this loads, all right. So this is what we spoke about, the Uber Black, being able to show those estimates for your traveler. It's looking about $71 from the airport and over to. You'll notice it's 2 rides because we have not added any events in yet. Down here we have rental cars, being able to show those different prices. We have really wonderful rental price discounts as well, especially because to give you a little insight, we had somebody asking about discounts. So we have discounts for rental cars, we have discounts for hotels, and you'll actually see that when you're looking at these options, you have what are called TRAVO rates. These are the special negotiated rates that we have for you from our provider, and they are considered more corporate rates because that's why TRAVO, if you have tried signing up recently, if you try using maybe a Gmail or anything, you can't get in right away until you are approved access, because TRAVO is offering these rates because you are assistants, you are helping people with their business travel. And so you can use it for their their family travel and different things like that, for their own personal travel. But the whole point is we need to know that you are an assistant that is assisting somebody with their travel or things of that nature. So that's where our discounts come from. We get up to, I believe, 25% for our hotels often, for most hotels. And I mean, we've even had people where they're planning for someone for a conference and they found a better rate for us than they actually had negotiated for the conference. So I'm just gonna skip ahead here, look at the itinerary real quick. So you can see the itinerary is really flushed out now with some items. And I'm just going to show you how easy it is to add events in, because that's really important to travelers. That shows them a lot of value to them when you're planning for them, is being able to include in their meetings. So we're just going to say he has a breakfast meeting. And that one is at headquarters nearby. So it's going to be at 500 East Wacker Drive. And the important thing is to put the times in there. He'll be there, but also to put in the notes. So he is actually, and I realized that he's in Chicago. I'm putting these in Chicago time. So I'm going to click Chicago here. And he's having a meeting with Mark from legal and Sarah from corporate. All right, just so that he has some notes knowing what he's going into in this event, and it's going to add that in. Now you notice it's at 6 a.m. because that is actually the time we are still in LA time here. So I'm going to actually switch the itinerary over to Chicago time so that I can begin planning in that. So that's what's great is if you're doing a lot of back and forth time zone travel planning here, it helps you to keep on track knowing what you're doing, especially if you're new to doing time zone travel planning. It helps to be able to see it laid out like this. All right, and then I'm just going to add one more meeting in. It's a pretty small schedule here for this. So it's doing Shed Aquarium visit. All right, and since we're integrated with Google Maps, you can actually look items up here because they're already in Google. So I'm going to do that from 1 until 5 p.m. while he's there. Just add that in, and then you'll see it's actually an 11-minute ride to that event. It shows the entire line here in the trip from the hotel. So it's just building that itinerary for you. All right, and then we're going to just skim through checkout real quick. So this is where it's really awesome, where you're going to have all the loyalty points, things filled out, credit card, you can choose a primary card, being able to choose their seats. There's no loyalty points for this hotel, so they haven't been filled in. You can edit them though if you know they have some and you want to add it into their profile. And then complete checkout. It's really easy. Just click that one button there after clicking this box. And so then everything is booked separately and all of the receipts are sent to the traveler and to you. This is reserving the hotel. There are prepay options for hotels. Here's a little bit of information for travel planning. If your traveler wants to use, it's not going to be too much of a problem since you're probably going to be using the same credit card your traveler is going to use when they get to the hotel. But if your traveler does not want to prepay for a hotel, they will need to have a credit card authorization form to use the credit card it's reserved with if they're not going to have it with them at the time of check-in. So that's just kind of how hotels work. And so that's the way the system works as well, where it reserves these items, but then it also, you can prepay so you don't have to worry about that. But then it does make it harder for canceling and things such as that. All right, and I'm just going to quick name my trip here and do a little bit to show you about how you can share this with your traveler. Okay, so this is where a lot of it comes in that makes it really easy for doing this all virtual for your traveler is the share tools. So we have a thumbs up here. That's how you can send it for approval. And I already sent it a very similar trip for approval earlier to show you what this email is going to look like. And so this email here, you're going to be able to see they can review the itinerary, they can approve and decline it. But what's awesome is it just shows everything that's involved. So the pricing, shows the flights in detail, shows the expected Uber pricing. It also shows the hotel pricing as well, so that they can really see it all in detail right here, the total pricing. Now, I don't know if you remember, but I showed you how you're able to actually add in items that could be considered. So items, that's going to be the admin suggested list. Those items would actually appear underneath here, so they could say, oh, I like the Swiss hotel, but I actually like this other Holiday Inn that you suggested too. And when they reply to this email, it'll actually go to you. We have it set up so it goes to you, the admin who's travel planning for them, since we know some people they want to get in the tool and they want to look at it themselves. Some travelers do, but a lot of them are probably just going to reply to this since you sent it to them. They're going to reply to it and they want it to be sent to you so they can say, yeah, I love this. Go forth and book this trip for me. But this saves a lot of time, because if you are travel planning for somebody, the hardest part, especially when you can't be right in the room with them, is you're doing so much copying and pasting to put this all in there. But since we just include it all in there for you, you don't have to do all that copying and pasting. So I'm going to click Review Itinerary here, just to show you another portion of it. This is kind of how your traveler can look at it as well. So where you're going to be able to, it'll open this up, and then they can actually click Edit and Book, and they can log in themselves and book themselves if that's how they prefer, or they can look at the itinerary in more detail in this view here. All right, and same with bookings. So the great thing is too, that same link, you're going to be able to also see the bookings even after they're finished being booked. Then it's going to have all the confirmation numbers. All right, so we're going to go back to the sharing tools here. You can export it as a Word document. And so I saved it here for you to be able to see what it looks like in Word document form. So this is where I said it's going to save you a lot of time not having to go through everything, not having to copy and paste and create this itinerary for them. Also, those notes that you include in, it has them right here for them. One note, meeting with Mark from legal and Sarah from corporate, so that they have that all right within the itinerary, because when you're planning for somebody new, you're going to want to also think about, you're going to want to ask them, are they someone who likes to have a hard copy? Do they prefer to have a link on their phone? Do they want it on their calendar, or do they want all three, which is almost always the case. So then that brings me to this, which is the shared link, which this is one that's great too if you're travel planning for somebody and they have family and they want you to send over their trip for them to view, to know where they are, especially if they have a complicated trip, to know where they are at all times. And so this just loads that same, it's actually the same page from earlier, from right in here, where when you click Review Itinerary, it actually brings them to that same page so that they're able to look at the full itinerary and look at the bookings, which is great, because you could even just send that link to them in a text so they can open it and look at it and reply and say yes, no, if they're that kind of person too for travel planning. And then last but not least, adding to their calendar. So this is where you're going to be able to add to their calendar. We'll just click it here. And what you can do is, if you're integrated with their Google Calendar, that's wonderful. You can pop it right in. Or you can download it as an Outlook file as well. So, or I'm sorry, not an Outlook file, an ICS file. So if they have Outlook or any other calendars, you can download it and email it to them, and they can just open it and drop it right into their calendar. I'm going to show you two things, and then I'd love to open it up for some questions. So we have, this is Copy Trip here. This is a feature that a lot of people use. Maybe, I don't know how often you're planning for a team, but it might happen where you're going to plan for one person. They'll say, I have a couple other people I work with, and we'd love to have you do the travel planning when we do, you know, team trips together. Can you do that? So what's awesome is you can plan one trip, and then you can actually copy it to different travelers, making it really easy to copy it and just book it for 3 separate people, so that then they can log in, see their trips and all their trip details themselves. And so one last item, I'm just going to click Trip Manager here. And so this is where you are going to be able to keep track of all of your travelers. Now, your own travelers themselves will only see their own trips here, but you are just going to see, you're going to see all of theirs, all the ones that you're working on, whether they're booked, what the status is on that. Also being able to look up past trips. So this is awesome if maybe you plan for somebody at the beginning of the year and then you don't plan for them again until the end of the year, but it's the same trip, or you just kind of want to see what you did last time. You can pull up those old trips and just kind of see what you have. And then reports and invoicing. This is important because people are always going to be scrambling and ask you for receipts This is where you can pull receipts from the flights and things such as that later after things have been booked. And so I believe that is it. I'm going to have Ashley send out the survey. We'd love to have you give your feedback on TRAVO and just kind of learn a little bit more about maybe if there's something else you'd like to know from us or a little bit more information. Yeah, so I'm just going to turn off screen sharing here, and I'm going to ask Ashley if we have any more questions. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm seeing here, how do I cancel the trip? Great question. I'm actually going to go back to screen sharing just to show you a little bit about that. Okay. Okay, we'll do some screen sharing. Also, did you check those questions down there? Okay. Sorry for the infinite screen again. Okay, so I don't know if I have any old trips that were booked that I can cancel. But when you do book a trip, I'm just going to open one back up here. It's the Chicago trip. It's actually a different one that I worked on for somebody. Doing a lot of Chicago trips. So this is kind of what it looks like too when you're opening up an old trip. This one's already, yeah, it's over now. So this one won't matter as much, but you'd be able to easily go to the checkout and see anything up here is booked portions in the checkout. And right now it only shows Uber since this trip was actually in the past, but I did not book anything, so nothing appears in there. But for canceling trips, it's really easy. You actually just click cancel on the flights, on the hotel, and the car. A little bit about that. So this is where trip planning can get a little bit tricky. But we are always available to help you. So we are in the office from 9 a.m. until 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for you to feel free to call us at Hi TRAVO, and we can help you, walk you through canceling if you want to. One of the great things for travel planning with TRAVO is that the first 24 hours, you are able to, almost all flights, you are able to get a full refund if you cancel them in the first 24 hours of booking. This is even if it's just like right before the flight, if it's a couple days before, which is not how it is. Most airlines, you have to have booked it within a few weeks of the flight. And then, yeah, and so, but you can cancel them even after the 24 hours. So then the way that works is you'll cancel and the information is going to go right to the airline. And so that airline is going to have that's canceled for that traveler. And then depending on how expensive that ticket was, it's just going to kind of depend, because you're going to be able to rebook a new flight for them later, but they have what are called change fees. So some of them, it's as high usually as $200 to change that ticket for them. But anyone who travels knows that and knows that's going to be a part of it. So don't be scared to tell them things like that. And that's just all, you can do that all right through the airline, or if your traveler wants to have an extra charge for it to be faster, you can speak right with, we have our special booking department where they do charge a fee, different fees that are actually going to be for canceling or for changing over different tickets and things like that. But you can find all of those. I'm just going to click here in client support. And so client support has all those prices listed out. We don't see any of those special pricing here. We don't see any of the money from this. This is just more something we wanted to provide to people, so they have 24/7 service. They'll always have people there at the ready to help them. So if you're just freaking out and you're like, I need someone to help me, there's these different fees associated with it, but you know, it's there to help, especially if it's really quick. But the great thing is, and I can't stress this enough, is that if you are travel planning for somebody and using TRAVO, it's just so much easier because everything that you book through us, it goes direct to the hotel, to the airline, all of that. So the charges that they receive are going to show up as the airline, as the hotel, all of that. So you're not going to have to worry about them being like, what's this TRAVO business that you're making me sign up for and use? It's actually going to, the charges on their credit card are going to show up as those establishments. So yeah, I'm going to go back to the chat here. So, okay, one sec. Sorry. Okay, we're going to shrink that back down, and I'm going to make this bigger. All right, I'm just looking at some questions here. So it looks like, yeah, people are asking about the price for TRAVO. TRAVO is completely free to use. The only things you'd be charged for are going to be when you book things for your clients, so you're going to be paying for their tickets and all of that, which will be on your client's credit card. So TRAVO is completely free to use. We have a lot of people ask why that is. So we have some really amazing investors who believe in really assistance as a really important part of kind of just the system of business and everything. And there's not a lot of people that are always making technology for them. And so they really believe in our cause of making technology for assistance for the admin community. And so, yeah, so that's where why TRAVO is free. The only reason we would ever charge for it, we're working on an enterprise level that's going to be more for small businesses with, you know, larger amounts of employees. But what you see today is, yeah, it's completely free to use. So even feel free to kind of go in and try it out a little bit and see. So TRAVO is about, we've been around for more than 2 years, but this version has been around for, the exact version you're seeing today has been around for maybe 8 months, but we have done a lot of extensive research to create the version you see today, because there was an older version of TRAVO that was around for a little over a year, where we just got a lot of feedback, and so this is kind of like the refreshed version that you're seeing today. Thanks for your questions, everybody. So
one more. Can the client keep their credit card number private for me, or do I ultimately see it when booking? Also, if I am booking for a team of coworkers, can I let them see each other's arrangements? Thanks, and that's from Noreen Oda.
Okay, so Noreen had a question about credit cards. Credit cards are really, really simple. So credit cards, your traveler, they are going to add it in, and you're going to be able to use it at checkout, and you actually will not see their credit card number when you check out. You'll see the last few digits, just because some people will say, yeah, make sure to book with 2735, but you will not see the actual credit card. So it's really great for their privacy to just kind of keep it all together. And then regarding if you're booking for a team of people together, yes, you can book for a team. You can actually do multiple travelers at once. You can do up to 8 people doing a trip all together, doing, you know, they're going to be on the same flight, they're going to be in the same hotel, you just need multiple rooms. You can actually do that all in one trip. And then, but if you want them to see everyone's arrangements all together, you can send that share link that I showed you, where you're going to be able to see what the full trip is. And one last thing, a little note that I forgot to include there was for itineraries. Once you do book everything, all the confirmation numbers are going to go into that itinerary for you. So for that itinerary, it's actually going to, it'll just auto fill in the hotel check-in confirmation, the flight check-in confirmation. So that's another thing you're not going to have to think about. It's just going to be put in there. So when you're done booking, you can just drop it into an email for them, you know, with that fully created itinerary, that calendar, all of that. So yeah. Which one?
The next question is, where does TRAVO get the prices from? Expedia? Thanks. And that's from Noreen as well.
Okay, Noreen, great question. Our prices are actually kind of on par with Expedia, if not cheaper. We get ours from a special rates provider. So it's that special corporate rates provider that I spoke about. And so it's more of corporate rates, whereas Expedia is going to be kind of different, where they can't offer certain rates that we have because corporate rates are different, where businesses are much more likely to give special rates to business travelers because they're not going to have to worry about you know, the big groups and things like that. It's they just want to give those special rates to business travelers because they're hoping to get those loyal clients. So that's where we get our special rates from. All right, and then it looks like we have another question. Boarding pass get emailed directly to the client? No, at this time it does not. We're actually doing an update very soon too, where it's going to be updating everyone 24 hours before the flight, where it's going to have their check-in link for them. So that's kind of on the horizon. It's going to be there pretty soon, but you'll have all the check-in information. So if you want to, you can check in for your traveler and actually send it right over to them. But great questions. And okay. Let's see. And then it looks like Ashley answered my question for Renee, but yeah, you don't have to download TRAVO at all, and you can just easily sign up at TRAVO.com. And then also too, please feel free, if you have any issues signing up, I'm entering in, my email is Susan@TRAVO.com, and then Ashley@TRAVO.com. If for any reason there's a holdup in the process for having you sign up for your profile, just because if it's blocked saying it's a personal email or anything, please email us and let us know you were a part of this webinar. We want to get you access ASAP. And then we have another question here from Tanya. It says, if there is a price drop in tickets or hotel accommodations, does TRAVO refund the difference? No, we do not. It's going to be like any other service that you use, where once you book it, it's going to be that price. But that does bring up a great question about pricing. So say you're planning a trip for somebody and you save the trip and then you plan to go back to it later. So what happens then is actually when you go back to it later, maybe to book it or check it out or see if anything has changed, what's going to happen is a little window is going to pop up, and it's actually going to tell you how much the prices have changed. It's going to show you if that hotel sold out. It's going to find a comparable hotel near that area, comparable hotel to that one, and it's actually going to show you how it's swapped out for that one. So it'll update you on everything if the prices have raised or lowered, showing you the old one versus the new one. So yeah, I think we're all set with questions. If anyone has anything else, please feel free to email us. And Ashley's going to send the survey one more time in the chat box, just so anyone who maybe didn't get the survey, we want you to be entered to win the $25 Amazon gift card. So yeah, so make sure to fill out that survey. Let us know what you thought. And yeah, we're excited. All right. Yeah, if you travel yourself, you can use the TRAVO rates as well. It's mostly for business travel, but if you yourself are an assistant and you're using it to travel, you know, more power to you to use it for planning out your own trips as well. Yeah. All right, so there is the survey link again, and I am just going to mute myself for just a couple more minutes while we're here, and I didn't get to, and thanks so much. Really, thanks so much for joining us, and I really hope I was able to help you kind of learn a little bit about travel planning as a virtual assistant and showing you the tool and telling you tips. I hope it was really helpful, and this is something that you can add in for your clients and kind of have something new. Oh, we have another question here. Tanya, when sending an itinerary approval to a client, how long do they have to approve that price? So when you're sending the approval, it actually is not holding those prices for you. It's important to, when you're sending it to them, to make sure they know that that price could change, especially if the flights are very close or anything like that. So that's actually a great tip. Thank you for including this in. Make sure to put in the approval message. Just say, you know, these prices are not held for you. Please, please make sure to approve this fast as possible to get these prices. This is also a great thing because if you don't say things like that, travelers often have a tendency to just keep pushing it and pushing it to the last minute. And then they're like, oh my gosh, why is this trip, you know, $200 more than it was a month ago? And it's like, well, it's because that was a month ago. So it's really great to just let people know that that's kind of what they need to expect when they are approving the trip that you've planned for them. All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for being with us. And thank you so much for Lisa for kind of getting the word out and having you all join us today. I really can't thank her enough. She's been awesome. She gave me a lot of great feedback as to kind of what people wanted to hear today. So I know the webinar went over in time a little bit. It's 11:11, but I just wanted to dive really deep in there for everybody. So, all right. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to mute myself for just a second, just in case a couple questions come in, but I'll log off in about 2 minutes. So thanks again. Bye.